What a day. So I'm here with some evil TERFs down under. I'm calling this TERF Talk Down Under. It's a concept that I've come up with. I have Andy Jones here, who is the TERF Talk Down Under content deliverer. I've got Catherine Deves, myself, I'm Kellie-Jay, and this is Moira Deeming, who's an MP. And we've just had an exceptionally interesting day. So if I come round and maybe each of you can sum up the best and worst, maybe, or just let's start with the best. Let's go positive because I'll start. So I think the number of people that turned up today is absolutely phenomenal. I'm absolutely blown away. The courage of everybody that turned up. I'm always quite impressed in Australia that there's quite a good handful of men that turn up on the TERF side. And obviously the trans activists came, which meant the press came, but we can't really, it's Melbourne, so it's very different, right? So, Angie, you are Melbourne.
Yeah. The thing that I think we did well is that the marshals, we were very under-resourced, like there weren't many of us, but I think we all came together and kept people safe where we needed to. And I'm very, very, very proud of the women who are in our working group and who fronted up today. Some of them have never, ever even been to a protest, let alone been a marshal with violent TRAs, and they really stood up, you know. Yes, I'm really, really proud of them. And I think also visually, I think one of the reasons that they're on the news, they haven't shown our side, they're only showing the Nazis and the trans rights activists, is if you looked at our protest, you'd see all these signs that all matched, and you'd see the rainbow flags and the suffragette flags, and visually, we looked sane. And all the messages were on signs as well that you could easily see, like, you know, what is it, lesbians don't have a penis and whatever. So I think the reason the media didn't cover our side from, you know, stand back and take a photo is because we looked great, and it would have made people curious about what we were about.
Yeah. Kath, what about you?
I thought the speeches today were absolutely magnificent. What some of those women got up, they were shaking when they got off the microphone. They were so brave. Again, it was such a varied mix of women, varied mix of experiences. And if the people who are the detractors or the media who have been, some of whom have been absolutely just remiss in how they've reported this, if they actually listened to what the women had to say, they'd understand what we're about. So I think this is a fantastic record for history, and I'm really proud of everyone who worked to pull it together today.
Yeah, me too. I think Australian women are quite funny. I think there was a lot of humour in a lot of the speeches. What about you, Moira?
Look, as a newly elected MP, it was really interesting for me and vindicating to see women from every single political party uniting over these basic human rights. It was also wonderful to see just how protective everybody was of each other. You know, we had a couple of people become very violent. So some trans activists pretended to be a part of our group. Obviously, there was that group of masked men who came in. We didn't know who they were, but we were concentrating on these people at the front. And, you know, one woman was knocked unconscious and taken to hospital. I got kicked in the shins a whole bunch of times. But they were dealt with within, you know, under a minute each. Like, we dealt with them, we got rid of them, and we just carried on. And that's what we'll continue to do. And it was just a fun day, and it was really great.
Yeah. One thing that I think we need to mention about the attacks, the first kind of weird thing with the paint, that was two women. The person who grabbed the microphone, that was a man. And I think that there's been a lot of misinformation online about that person being a woman and that security. And let me just say for the record, and I'm not speaking for anybody else in this room, but if somebody comes and poses a risk to women, I'm kind of all right with a little bit of violent, kind of pulling them out of the way, proportionate violence, and getting them out of the way and away from women as a risk. So some highlights would be some of the speeches, some of the courage. A low light, I think, would be the fact that the police were brilliant. We had to wrap up early because the horses were being assaulted and the police were really frightened by, so the trans activists, the peaceful trans activists, many of them vegan, don't mind punching a horse apparently. So we had to wrap up. That's why we finished a little bit sort of quickly, and we had to really rush the speeches at the end. And then obviously there were some other people occupying the steps, which I think we all thought, we were told by security were Antifa because they were all in black with black masks. So we thought they were Antifa and they were just over there. But I think it's safe to say there were so many risks, potential risks in our crowd.
Yes.
There was a dodgy man that never got to really do anything, but there was a lot of like eyes on him. There was another couple of women that like some of the stewards didn't know, were they safe, were they not, were they about to attack someone? So there wasn't a lot of time to try and ascertain what else was going on between like the people in your immediate vicinity and who was going to cause harm. Andy, you were sort of more on the outskirts. What were the trans activists trying to do? Because it looked like they were trying to break through.
They were under the horses, punching the horses in the guts, trying to get between the horses to get through to us. Now,
That's so
yeah,
painful.
and they were rabid, and I had a few of them, you know, point and do the. They were absolutely and utterly rabid, and they would point and go like they were just crazy, you know. And yeah, but what we had a couple of people on the outskirts because we wanted to watch and see if they broke through, then we would have all had to go quickly because they were pushing and shoving, and because they were probably 3 or 4 deep and spread out across about 50 meters. If that line of police had broken, they would have swarmed us, and you know, women would have got hurt. And it was men, it was mostly men. There was a lot of young women screaming and yelling insults in the front and just saying disgusting things, but the threats of violence were from men. There were so many men in that crowd.
Wow.
And they meant business. They came there to harm us.
God.
Yeah.
God. What did you think? Because you're a woman of a reasonable height. So you could see over and see what was it. Did you sort of feel that there was an imminent threat?
I did. Early on in the piece, I was alerted to a man who was there, and he had expressed the desire to harm, I think, all 4 of us, those of us who were sort of prominent in the group, and I actually felt quite fearful about that. And that's when we were told that the police have said you need to run if that guy comes towards you. It's like, run where? Where do we go? And I was roaming around quite a bit once I'd spoken, just to get a gauge, and a few times, like with the microphone people and the paint people, I was like, spidey senses, I'm sorry, those people are off. Those people are off. And there was a couple of people that I approached to vet them, and a few people who got offended that I did that, but I just said, I'm sorry, like everyone is afraid right now. You don't fit in. Explain yourself, because we don't know who you are. And I mean, liquids were thrown. There was water that was thrown. There was someone who had some sort of feces smelling liquid that was sprayed on women.
And like, it's not funny, it's disgusting.
They had fart gas. It's fart gas.
It's so weird. But it's like, but we don't know if that's acid. We don't know what that is. Something that really might hurt. So there was a few moments where I thought, I'm actually feeling really afraid. And when we saw the TRAs pushing forward and the police weren't pushing back on them, and they were getting closer and closer, and that's when the police horses came over from that side, and I was really grateful for that. But then when I heard they were assaulting the police horses, wearing armour, coming underneath and punching police horses in the belly, I just thought, my God, these people are actually insane.
Well, I've heard a lot of people, like normally taxi drivers, because and not necessarily in this country, but taxi drivers are often on the precipice of sort of conspiracy theories, but obviously sometimes they seem to know stuff before, and they think, and I think it's worthy considering, they think that some of these activists are paid, like coming with armour. That's a bizarre thing to do to defend penises in women's spaces. But coming with armour to fight the police, knowing to punch a police horse in the gut underneath, it's just disgusting. But knowing to do that just seems a little bit more military, threatening and professional. But should we talk about the elephant in the room, Moira? Because you're going to complain. Because
Yes.
we had, when we both got there, so we were told that, well, we both thought that there was Antifa, and I was told, even putting my tripod at the top of the steps, there was a very militant police officer that was like, get off the steps, don't stand on the steps, don't stand on the steps. Really wouldn't let us stand there, and we had a permit for where we did stand, but there were other people that didn't have a permit.
Yes, so the thing that I found very confusing was that we were assured by the police, and as I say, it seemed to us while we were there that everything was going well, that the police were trying to help us, and I think the majority were. But when I was alerted to the fact that there were all these masked men coming towards us, they were all in black, we couldn't see their faces. I thought that the trans rights activists had broken through the line and we were about to get attacked. I honestly just thought, this is it.
Yep.
We're all about to get attacked. But the police were very, very calm, and they had set up a big buffer zone. They had set up, a boundary, but they were talking to these people and letting them stand on the steps and take photos. I was told later that they had a banner or something, but then I was also told later that one of our marshals had stood like this with her arms out to stop them from coming in, because like me, like most women there, we thought that they were Antifa, or they had broken through the lines, we were about to get attacked. And the police, for some reason that I do not understand, ushered them in, let them have photos on the steps next to us, and then instead of pushing them back out the same way that they came in, took them right through the middle of the buffer zone that they had been at great pains to separate us all from either side of. They just walked them right through the middle, and then right as they were in the centre in front of all those cameras, they did a Nazi salute, and that was horrifying. But that was only a split second, because then they would continue to be escorted out, and so I thought, oh good, they've taken them out. But it was only later on I thought, why did they take them out through the middle? Why did they even let them in here? How were they able to keep all those trans rights activists, the ones who were punching the horses, how did they keep all of those people away from us? But they just welcomed in and let these people in black masks, you couldn't see their faces, no identifying.
They looked like black bloc. They did.
Yeah.
They looked like the
there was
black
no
bloc
symbols.
anti-fascist.
People are saying, why didn't you tell the Nazis to leave? Well, there was no Nazi symbols on them. I thought they were Antifa. Until they put their hands up like that, I thought they were the trans rights activists. And then when they did that, they were being escorted out and it was over.
Well, the funny thing is as well, they shout at me, you can't run, you can't hide, you've got Nazis on your side. And they're really angry, shouting that I'm this thing and this apparent thing that they really hate. When those men did that Nazi salute,
There was no reaction.
there was no reaction whatsoever.
No
Those
reaction.
trans activists didn't get more angry, didn't shout, didn't get more aggressive, they didn't do anything.
It was
If
as if they
I'd-
were saying hello.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it was like, hi, all right, mate.
To their friends.
But I think it's very interesting, because I think if any one of us, recognisable women, had walked that same bit down there, they would have broken through, they would have attacked us, and something about all of this doesn't make any sense. It feels really off. It feels like they were either, look, in the UK we had police impregnating women who were animal rights campaigners, right? And we had those police infiltrating groups. I don't think it's beyond the wit of anyone to think that either was TRAs dressed up, or police, or just something was just off.
Best
There
case
wasn't
scenario.
enough violence between the two men.
Best case scenario was a massive mistake by the police to let these unidentifiable masked men in, because all of us women were terrified.
Yeah.
We did not understand why they were there. The police had been successfully keeping everyone else away, and then all of a sudden there were these terrifying, big, strong masked men, and we didn't know why they were there. And we know now that the police knew that they weren't with us, because they obviously escorted them away from us and away from the protest, and that our own marshals had asked them to leave.
But I don't. So I guess it's not really for us to work out why the police suddenly escorted them away and
Through
passed
the middle.
everyone. I mean, that's nuts. But I wonder what prompted them to leave, because I didn't really notice them
Yeah,
at all
they
when we
didn't
were
come
doing
near us.
anything.
We all
No.
had our backs to these guys on the steps. We had our backs to these blokes, and so there's a few of us milling around. Once we realised they weren't a threat, we kind of turned our backs and just got on with it.
Yeah.
And so the reason that there's no photos out there of the Nazis with us, the Nazis inverted commas with us, is because they were never with us.
Mm.
They were like way over there. We all had our backs. We were facing the opposite direction. So when the police marched them out, they marched them towards the trans rights activists, past the trans rights activist. They saluted at the trans rights activist, and the trans rights activists didn't even blink and kept yelling at us women.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's
is
very
strange.
well, I also wonder as well, so we had such a great success in the last place I was at, Adelaide, and it went on lots of news channels. I don't think it's a real big mistake that then they upped the ante about kind of opposing us or guilt by association, and I'm afraid it is just a tool of the left, and maybe it used to be a tool of the right, but at the moment this thing that we're doing, it does seem to be a tool of the left, and today was, I think, very, very scary. I think the police being told by the police that they're afraid that they're going to get injured, so us women have to stop talking, is nuts.
Mhm.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
And something you must have encountered before.
Oh, yes, that fear of, being injured. You don't know where the threats are coming from. And, when we were in that crowd today and you're just looking around, and that's one thing that I experienced in the election, when you go out in public and there are those big herds of people, or we had a mob. We had a mob
Yeah.
within 100 meters of us, and that mob mentality is really dangerous. And you do not know where the threat is coming from. You don't know if it's going to be behind you. You don't know if it's going to be someone in our group who suddenly turns. You don't know if it's the mob going to break ranks. It is really quite viscerally scary. And you have those moments where you think, my God, all I'm doing is standing here saying, women have the right to sex-based rights. Stop messing with our kids. Let us have our freedom of speech. And this is the response. People need to start waking up to the fact as to how powerful and how dangerous this movement really is. I mean, as we know, they've infiltrated our institutions, our judiciary, our parliaments, our media, and so on. And the fact that even the police are afraid of their violence, I mean, we need to ask who are the baddies here, people? Because I don't think it was the group of middle-aged women standing there in our sun hats, a few with our husbands, listening to other women speak.
No, it was crazy. Do you think this will have any impact on politicians in Melbourne?
Well, there were a couple of other politicians in attendance today. They didn't come up the front with me, but they, to their credit, were there listening. And, these conversations are going to keep happening. There's no avoiding this issue. If people think that they can win the women's vote or the multicultural vote or any kind of swinging vote or any kind of fringe, like the votes that aren't rusted onto whichever party that they've always voted for, if they think they can just keep on getting our votes without dealing with this issue, I mean, they're just in denial. The fact that we're all sitting here together tonight demonstrates that. We will put everything else aside because this is for our own survival and for the survival of our children. There's nothing that we will not do to get these rights back.
Yeah.
And, and we have only ever acted within democracy. It's those other people and men who have threatened violence. It's not us. We've just asked for the laws to be changed. We've never threatened anyone. We've never hurt. Like you were saying, those police had to protect their own horses and their own people from them. We were not the threat.
Yeah, I just wonder what I hope from this is, well, for a start, I think we have changed the conversation in Australia. I think that's a given. I think that it's been really successful so far, and I think it will continue to be so. But what I hope is when somebody watches it and they go, sorry, there are women talking about children's rights and women's rights. Is that what they're doing? And they don't want that massive bloke in the school. and I'm supposed to believe that they're fascists. I hope that people have enough about them that they start saying, not only that doesn't make any sense, that sounds ridiculous, but also, well, actually, I agree that there shouldn't be men and women's sports, and I'm going to start speaking up because these women are clearly vilified, and that's why I think a lot of people have started coming out, because they're fed up with how women are treated when they do come out. So we'll round up because we've done about 20 minutes. So we'll just say final sum up of the event for you then, Angie.
That was great. I'll do it again tomorrow. It was good. I am disappointed that the media narrative has been about who was there, not the women who spoke and the stories and the issue that we're trying to get across. But we kind of expected that as well. But yeah, I just think we're in desperate times here in Melbourne, and you've seen that for yourself. And what we were up against, and and I think we're at a turning point, and you coming has been the perfect thing to tip it over the edge, So let's hope that more people speak up and something actually changes. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Sorry, I must start using your grown-up name.
Oh, that's all right. I just want to say to the people who might feel a bit afraid, you don't have to come to a rally, but even afraid to speak in their own lives, there is something really empowering and really freeing about speaking facts, about being able to get up and speak your truth and talk about how you feel, even in the face of, extreme opposition, that feeling that you are actually free and you are doing something for yourself, you're doing something for other women, for children. It's an incredible feeling. So, maybe have another think about speaking up in your own life, because it's really quite incredible to feel that way.
Yeah, Moira?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just wanted to reiterate along similar lines that, they live in a house of cards. We live in reality. We won't stop. We're not confused, and we aren't tired. Someone pointed out to me that, I was an idiot because this law got changed in 2013, as though being gaslit and abused for 10 years was going to stop us. We're just warming up. We will not stop. This will not stand. Women will never stop until we get these rights back. End of story.
Well, I would just like to say I'm absolutely delighted that I came to Australia. I knew Melbourne was going to be a particular flashpoint. It's the first time I've experienced somebody right in, like, deranged, right, trying to get sort of make their mark right in front of camera and grabbing the microphone. But fortunately, nobody was injured, and that was a man.
No,
sorry.
a woman was knocked unconscious and taken to hospital, and I have bruises all over my shin.
Okay, sorry.
From this man who was just trying to grab the microphone.
Aside from somebody going to hospital.
Well, we only found out about that afterwards. We didn't know until just recently. Yes.
But look, that won't stop us. Next stop is wherever I'm going next, Tasmania, Hobart. And then it's going to be Canberra, and then we're coming to New Zealand, which will be interesting. I'm not even sure. Goodness knows, I don't think anything can be quite as exciting as today. But the speeches from Australian women have just been sublime. It's like they've been holding their breath for quite some time, and some of them have just come out with the most wonderful things. And the F word said in an Australian accent is particularly wonderful. But thank you, all of you. Thank you for your hard work in making this
Thank you for
happen.
coming to Australia.
Yes.
Thank you for coming to Melbourne. We appreciate it.
Well, here's to us being amazing. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
And goodbye, people at home.
Good evening, everyone.
Bye.